My fusion system, fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapter 591, Tasting the Phoenix Egg. That. The elves' faces were filled with heartache when they saw the fruits on the ground. Many regretted not eating them earlier so that the Elven King would not have the chance to throw the fruits away. It was not only those elves, but the Elven King also felt his heart ache when he saw the fallen fruits on the ground. However, he endured it and did not show it due to his pride. It seems like your majesty is not too satisfied with the fruits from our world tree. It's our fault for not confirming whether those fruits have ripened or not. As compensation, we'll take you to visit the breeding farm in Mount Creation later. You'll be able to taste the freshest phoenix eggs there. List apologized to the elves with a serious expression. Even though he could see that the Elven King was only saying that to keep his dignity intact, he still could not accept his inability to satisfy his guests. Phoenix egg? An egg laid by the legendary phoenix. The number of divine beasts like the phoenix is even rarer than dragons, and the phoenix egg is one of the rarest treasures. Its quality is not inferior to the sun and moon fruit that we just ate. We are really lucky. The elves looked at each other and began to discuss it excitedly. When those words reached the ears of the Elven King, he frowned in dissatisfaction. What's so rare about phoenixes? Those who possess the power of supernatural evolution can break through your own bloodline, and you can become phoenixes yourself. Doesn't Delta have the phoenix bloodline? That's true. The elves all looked at Delta and nodded. Your Majesty, the corners of Delta's mouth twitched, and she forced a smile with difficulty. It was true that she had the bloodline of a phoenix, but there was still a difference between having the bloodline and being a pure phoenix. At least she did not know how to lay eggs. Cut the crap. Let's take a look at that so-called breeding farm. I hope the things there won't disappoint me. After entering Mount Creation, the Elven King had planned to take over the mountain and the Dragon Palace and use that place as the elves' base camp to attack the Holy Dragon Kingdom in the future. However, his curiosity was piqued. Could the phoenix eggs be more powerful than the precious sun and moon fruits? He did not believe it. He had to try them. The elves left the world tree with List and Alan with that thought in mind. They came to a huge palace not far from the world tree. A high fence surrounded the palace. There was more than one palace inside. There were more than 10 palaces of different sizes. Is that a breeding farm? I would believe that that is the royal palace. An elf whispered about the massive palace in front of him. The palace looked magnificent, and the material on the surface seemed to be rock or metal, making it difficult to distinguish. As soon as the elf finished his words, the Elven King glared at him, which caused him to shut up. It looks pretty gorgeous. I wonder why the farm is so beautiful. The Elven King muttered and looked at Alan. You said there are phoenix eggs here. Where are the eggs? Don't worry, Your Majesty. The phoenix eggs are in those palaces made of giant rock golems. I'll ask them to take the phoenix eggs out now. As Alan spoke, he clapped his hands, and the huge palace in front of them began to shake. Thick and sturdy rock legs extended from the ground, supporting the palace as it stood up. At the top of the palace, a giant's head appeared. Those palaces are made up of giant rock golems? Heavens, weren't they extinct? Why are there so many of them here? The elves widened their eyes in disbelief as they looked at what was happening in front of them. What surprised them, even more, was that a huge hole appeared in its chest after the giant stone giant stood up. It revealed hundreds and thousands of phoenix eggs that piled up inside. The phoenix eggs burning with white holy fire had a phoenix totem on them. The faint cry of a phoenix echoed in the air, and a rich fragrance appeared with the eggs. The elves subconsciously took a deep breath. They felt like the energy in their bodies was circulating much faster than before. Even though no elf had ever seen a phoenix egg before, at that moment, they all had a particular thought. There was no doubt that those were phoenix eggs in front of them. I did not expect a phoenix egg to be so big. It looks delicious. One of the elves wiped the corner of his mouth and took a step forward. If not for the Elven King by his side and Alan and List watching, he would have been eager to enter the interior of the giant rock golem to taste the egg. I thought it was very extravagant to use giant rock golems to store the phoenix egg, but after seeing the phoenix egg, I think it's worth it, another elf said. The phoenix egg had such value. It was enough to be stored in a house made of giant rock golems. If it were another place, even in a splendid palace, it would be enough to hold the phoenix egg. The phoenix egg is one of Mount Creation's earliest products. It was before young Master Watson even built Black Moon Castle. At that time, after young Master Watson's family was just a minor baron. Alan pointed at the phoenix egg and explained the situation. Seeing that the elves in front of him were already impatient, it was apparent that they were not interested in listening to the history of the phoenix egg. That made him smile helplessly as he gestured with his finger. He gave each elf at least 3 phoenix eggs. In short, the phoenix eggs are very precious to Mount Creation. You can try them. The elves did not hesitate at all. Some crushed the shell and poured the egg liquid into their mouths. Some elves did not even break the shell and instantly stuffed the phoenix egg into their mouths. They choked in pain, but their faces revealed a look of enjoyment. That truly showed what pain and happiness were. As expected of the phoenix egg. After consuming it, I feel my body is filled with power, and as if I am much younger. An elf raised his hands after consuming a phoenix egg. His hands were initially filled with wrinkles and calluses due to his years of holding weapons. Those wrinkles and calluses had disappeared, his hands had become as soft and smooth as a baby's. Look, I seem to have grown phoenix wings. An elf cried out in surprise. A pair of phoenix wings that were burning with flames appeared behind him. With a gentle flap, the temperature of the air immediately rose. Consuming phoenix eggs can increase one's strength and extend one's lifespan. Most importantly, it can awaken your phoenix bloodline, List explained promptly. His words caused the elves to be pleasantly surprised. They did not expect the phoenix eggs to be delicious and powerful. Once again, they felt like they had profited from being chosen by the Elven King to come to the border. While the elves were filled with joy, a group of angels carrying baskets once again walked out of the farm. It's time to collect the phoenix eggs. Ever since we had the wish for the world ring, we've been collecting the phoenix eggs every day, and it's almost impossible to collect them. Now, we have 3 meals a day, and each meal has at least 1 phoenix egg. I'm getting tired of eating it. Don't be so picky. Phoenix eggs are precious and delicious. If it were in the past, it would be difficult to eat them once in a lifetime, let alone every meal. I know that phoenix eggs are very precious, but you will feel bored after eating too much of anything. Furthermore, Emperor Cluck is too good at laying eggs. She can lay at least 1,000 phoenix eggs per day, and with the wish for the world ring, we'd get at least 10 million eggs. Right now, more than half of the spiral stairs are piled high with phoenix eggs. At least we can discuss it with Emperor Cluck. It would be good if she could lay fewer phoenix eggs every day. A few angels were discussing it among themselves. Just as they were about to enter the palace, they heard a loud and clear cry of a phoenix. A snow-white frost phoenix with flames on its body flew down from the sky. With a flap of its wings, the air immediately bloomed with burning ice crystal flowers. Chapter 592, Throw Away Like Trash. It was unknown whether it was the cold or the heat, but the frost phoenix flew to the ground and transformed into a beautiful girl with snow-white hair. The girl wore a colorful feather dress, and crystal flowers were pinned on her slender arms and thighs. She looked gorgeous. However, the girl was hugging her shoulders at that moment, and her cheeks were puffed up. She looked furious. What do you mean? Are you blaming me for laying too many phoenix eggs every day? When there were fewer phoenix eggs in the past, you did not say that. If you dislike my eggs, then spit out those that you've eaten. I'm sorry, Lady Emperor Cluck. We were just joking. Please don't mind us. The angels that came to collect the eggs lowered their heads and apologized, their expressions awkward. Humph. The girl named Emperor Cluck snorted coldly, her expression still displeased. She turned slightly and noticed Alan, List, and the elves standing beside them. She spoke arrogantly, "Why is there a group of strangers near my palace? Are they here to steal my eggs?" "Lady Emperor Cluck, those are the Elven King's subordinates. They came here specifically to taste the phoenix eggs," Alan replied politely. Ever since Watson developed the ever-changing magic and passed it on to every magical beast, the powerful magical beasts on the mountain could transform into human forms, and Emperor Cluck was one of them. Many people no longer treated them as mere magical beasts. "Is that true?" "Of course, Lady Emperor Cluck. If you don't believe me, you can ask those elves." Emperor Cluck turned to look at the elves. "Do you guys like my eggs very much? Even though it's not appropriate to say that, I've recently laid too many eggs. So many that I'm even tired of looking at them myself." She had placed a lot of importance on her eggs as she had previously laid too few of them. She felt proud that her eggs had been tasted and praised by others. Once, she ruthlessly taught Golden Flash a lesson when he tried to steal her eggs, but her worries had changed. Golden Flash was tired of eating phoenix eggs, so he no longer ate them. The people on Mount Creation no longer praised her eggs. They were already used to eating such food. Even the farm where she lived had too many phoenix eggs, resulting in her smaller living area. She heard that the elves liked the phoenix eggs, so she could always give them away. "Lady Emperor Cluck, we do like your eggs." One elf tried to say something, and Emperor Cluck immediately smiled as brightly as a flower. "That's great. Since you like them so much, I'll give you more eggs." He waved at the giant palaces behind him that had yet to open. Those palaces turned into giants and stood up. Countless phoenix eggs rolled down from their chests and piled on the ground, perhaps tens of thousands of phoenix eggs. "These eggs are for you. These are only a small portion of the accumulated phoenix eggs. Because they take up too much space, I moved the eggs to the spiral staircase in the sky. I'll go get them for you now." "Wait." Seeing that Emperor Cluck was about to spread his phoenix wings and fly into the sky, the Elven King quickly reached out to stop him. He was excited that he had been given 3 phoenix eggs. He had never tasted such precious food before. He was numb when he knew that there were tens of thousands of those phoenix eggs. Then, he felt that something was wrong when he heard that it was only a small fraction of the total amount. It was one thing to raise a phoenix on Mount Creation, but it seemed like the phoenix was too good at laying eggs. It seemed like the precious phoenix eggs were nothing more than trash to Emperor Cluck. When he thought about how they were full of praise when they ate the phoenix eggs, he felt stifled. "What's wrong, Your Majesty? Aren't you satisfied with those phoenix eggs? If you're not satisfied, we can take you to the spiral staircase. The phoenix eggs there are of the highest quality. If it's because there are too many of them and you can't take them, we'll send the Black Moon Knights to help transport them. The phoenix eggs are not something too precious. We will talk about transporting them later. Do you have anything more precious here?" The Elven King forced himself to say something that he did not mean. "Yes, of course. Please follow me, Your Majesty." Alan nodded and led the elves away from the farm. They continued to walk down the mountain. After walking for a while, they came to a forest shining with diamonds. The forest was very dense. Every tree in the forest was shaped like a dazzling diamond, exuding a powerful aura. A group of farmers with hoes on their shoulders was in a field not far from the diamond-shaped forest. They were sowing wheat of the same crystal color in the field. Every tree in the forest is made of diamond-tier magical staffs. Ever since young Master Watson planted those magical staffs a few years ago in Mount Creation, the number had increased countless times. Initially, the purpose of cultivating those magical staffs was to decorate Mount Creation. However, many people coveted the diamond-tier magical staffs, resulting in them being produced too much. There's also that piece of farmland. The seeds on the farmland are called crystal wheat. Eating them will strengthen your body, prolong your life, and make you immune to all poisons. In the early years, those seeds were obtained by making wishes. Later on, the farmers realized that making seeds that way was too dull. So, they have begun to replant them manually. There are a lot of seeds stored on the spiral staircase. Would you like to take some with you, Your Majesty? Obtaining resources had been too convenient and boring for them. That was the case for the residents of Mount Creation. When they first received the wish for the world rings, they went from poor to rich overnight because everyone used them to duplicate resources. However, when the resources accumulated to a certain extent, it was just a number. They were already numb to it. On the contrary, they could just use the ring to make a wish if they wanted something. Most of the time, they did not have to do anything else. Many of them had already lived a long life, so they did not need to make any wishes. They were pretty self-sufficient. Even so, Mount Creation still had many resources. When Alan introduced the elves to the surrounding farmland and forests, some farmers noticed them and stopped what they were doing to greet them warmly. Alan and List responded to them, one by one. Your Majesty, what do you think about those forests and crystal wheat? How much can you take? List looked at the Elven King and asked nervously. Taking a deep breath, the Elven King's expression became strange. He had sensed that something was wrong when List had taken them to the farm to taste the phoenix eggs. List's slightly nervous tone made him understand what it was. Gentlemen, are you giving us these things because you've accumulated too many things on Mount Creation and want to throw them away like trash? How is that possible? Your Majesty, you must be joking. Those things are very precious outside. How can we throw them away? List and Alan laughed and looked away unnaturally. That behavior confirmed the Elven King's guess, and he did not know what to say. Chapter 593, A Family Reunion. The Elven King should have been furious when he learned of List and List's true intentions. However, whether it was the phoenix egg, the sun fruit, the diamond tear staff, or the crystal wheat, they were all highly precious items to others. He could not resist those treasures, so he was not angry. Instead, he was filled with envy and hatred. Why is the human kingdom so rich while the Elven kingdom hides in the forest of eternity and lives close to nature? How far has the Holy Dragon Kingdom progressed? The Elven King was regretting it then. He regretted coming to the Holy Dragon Kingdom with Watson to visit those places. He regretted not activating the power of the race chess pieces earlier and led the army to attack. That way, those things might have been his for a long time. Pack up those things later. I'll bring them back to the Elven Kingdom. Is there anything else worth visiting on this mountain? The Elven King calmed his excitement. After all, he was the leader of the elves. He had acted stubbornly to protect his dignity, but he still had to take the benefits. Of course, Your Majesty. There are many places worth visiting on Mount Creation. Please follow me, Alan said hurriedly, his face full of joy. He reached out and led the elves to the next location. The Elven King looked confused. He suddenly thought of a problem. The number of resources there was shocking, and that was not all. With such powerful resources and the strength of Mount Creation's residents, Watson could definitely face the elves head-on. Why would he rely on him? Did Watson want the elves for something? It was probably because of his brilliant mind and his kingly aura. Watson should not have been attracted by my heroic appearance leading the elven army to conquer the Holy Dragon Kingdom, right? I made many fine points in my speech when I broke the starlight barrier. It's no wonder Watson would want to follow me. A strange scarlet color flashed in his eyes, and the Elven King's initial doubts were quickly dispelled. He looked confident as he left with Alan and List. He did not notice that the air around him distorted after he left, and a snake-shaped scarlet object flashed in the air and disappeared. On the other hand, in Watson's direction. Father, Mother, I'm back. Watson pushed open the door to the hall on the first floor of the Black Moon Castle and shouted. He took a deep breath and looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar scene in the castle. He could not help but feel a little emotional. It had only been a few months since he left the world's highest mountain, but a few years had passed there. He had been busy dealing with King Landar III and did not have the time to see how his family was doing. He missed them very much. After a while, the entire corridor remained silent. The scene that Watson had imagined of his family running out to welcome him with tears in their eyes did not appear. "Hey! I'm back!" Stunned on the spot, Watson shouted again in disbelief. However, they still did not appear. After waiting a long time, he heard faint footsteps. A beautiful girl with green hair braided in a single ponytail and in a maid's outfit appeared. She came in front of Watson with an excited expression. "Young Master Watson, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. You're finally back." "Wendy." Watson was a little unsure. The young girl looked about 14 or 15 years old. She had a well-developed figure, and the two lumps on her chest swayed as she ran. At that moment, she was looking up at him. Her long eyelashes were stained with tears. She blinked gently, and a flower-like smile bloomed on her flushed face. "Yes, young Master Watson. I'm Wendy." A few years ago, Wendy was only a little kid about her age. In the blink of an eye, she had grown into a stunning beauty. "Where are my brothers and sisters?" Watson reached out and patted Wendy's hair. Wendy showed a look of enjoyment and caressed his hand like a kitten. Wendy looked at his hand and took a step back in embarrassment. It was as if she had just woken up from a dream. "The young masters and young ladies are currently on the top floor. During your absence, Master Edward has been spending every day with Lady Catherine. About a year ago, Lady Catherine was pregnant with another child. Just now, Lady Catherine said that she had abdominal pain and summoned all the maids. The young masters also rushed here. I think Lady Catherine should be giving birth soon." "I see." Watson's face was full of joy. When he saw no one in the castle, he thought that his family had hated him. Then, he learned that his mother was going to give birth, and he would have a younger brother or sister soon. That was a joyous occasion. "Wendy, which room is my mother in now? Take me there quickly." "Madam is in the third room on the top floor, to the right." Wendy turned around and was about to show Watson the way when she suddenly felt her body becoming lighter. She lowered her head and found herself in Watson's arms. Watson said, "It's too slow to walk. I can't wait any longer. Let me take you up." He flew up the stairs. Wendy's heart calmed, feeling that Watson's chest had become much firmer than it had been a long time ago, and he looked manly. The redness on her cheeks became more obvious. Her hands grabbed the corner of Watson's clothes carefully, and she pressed her cheek against it. She missed Watson every moment during his absence. She also wanted to accompany Watson, like Nightingale. Unfortunately, she knew that even though she had become an angel, she was still not good at fighting and could not help Watson in any way. The only thing she could do was to command the maids in the castle to serve the other young masters and young ladies so that Watson could leave home and go out wandering in peace. When Watson came back, she only needed to care for him when he was tired. Young Master Watson is still as reassuring as ever. Wendy closed her eyes and murmured. Suddenly, she felt a tremor in her body. When she opened her eyes, she found that she had already arrived at Catherine's room. The Gary family members stood at the door, including Edward, Watson's eldest brother, Vincent, and the others. Unexpectedly, they arrived at their destination quickly. Wendy felt a little lost. When she saw Edward and the others turn their heads to look at her, Wendy jumped out of Watson's arms. "Watson, you're home." His eldest brother, Vincent, was the first to notice Watson. He quickly walked up and gave Watson a bear hug. After a few months, his big brother had matured a lot. He had a broad waist and a thick back, and he also wore gold-rimmed glasses on his face. He looked refined, but his aura had gotten stronger. He had reached the peak of the diamond tier. Previously, Watson had developed all sorts of potions for the Dragon Clan, including the Dragon Transformation Potion and Ascension Potion. Those potions had been given to the Black Moon Knights when he fought against King Landar III. As members of Watson's family, they naturally received more than one portion. Watson's brothers and sisters had already consumed the Dragon Transformation Potion and become Diamond Tier elites with Angel and Dragon bloodlines. They had also consumed the Ascension Potion and experienced the power of a Starlight Tier elite. As a result, their training was very smooth. As long as they followed the steps, they would be able to advance to Starlight Tier. Chapter 594, Watson's younger sister. Did you rush home after learning that mother is pregnant? Watson's second sister, Nindy, asked as she walked toward Watson with a smile. It had been a long time since Watson last saw Nindy. She was wearing a mage hat and a long robe, and she looked like a sage with great magic power. Her eyes also contained a myriad of stars, which could calm other people. Watson let go of his big brother's hand and stammered to answer his second sister's question. He did not know that his mother was pregnant. If he had not brought the elves to the border, he would not have known that his mother was with child. His goal was to let his family and friends live happy lives, but he had been too concerned about other things, which made him feel ashamed. As if they could see Watson's embarrassment, Zeke and Zenoa walked forward to smooth things over. Watson went to the royal city. It's very dangerous to go against the king. How can we add to his burden? Didn't we agree not to tell Watson about mother's pregnancy so that he would not worry? How would he know if we didn't tell him? Watson might not know about that. Maybe he just misses us. Zeke and Zenoa were the same as before. They were still on good terms. The only difference was that the two brothers were dressed in neat suits and exuded great noble's aura. When Watson had been away, the two did not stop trading and had already made a name for themselves. Then, Watson shifted his gaze. He realized that his siblings had changed a lot. Even his father, Edward, was no longer the weak person he used to be. He exuded the aura of a Diamond Tier elite. Unlike the others, Edward only nodded when he saw Watson. He grabbed his hair and paced in front of the tightly shut door in annoyance. It's already been an hour since Catherine went in. This is the first time this has taken this long. And she has been pregnant for a longer time than the others. Everything is okay, right? Edward spat a few times as if he realized that his words were unlucky. I believe in Catherine. There won't be any accidents. I only need to consider whether I'll see a baby boy or a baby girl later. But will the child be human? I can now transform into a Diamond Tier dragon and have the bloodline of an angel. It's the same for Catherine. What if it's not a human but an angel or a dragon baby? Well, I can accept that. But please don't give birth to a monster that's half dragon, half angel, and half human. Edward was mumbling, but his voice was so loud that everyone could hear what he was saying. They all had strange expressions on their faces when they heard that. Father, you're still worried about such a problem at a time like this. I can only say that you're still you. Watson's sixth sister, Margaret, held a thick piece of parchment and recorded something on it. She could not help but grumble, but that question is very interesting. What would a child born to two people with three bloodlines look like? Would the number of his bloodlines increase or decrease? Watson, do you know the answer to that question? I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that the child will be a human being and a girl. Watson touched his chest. At that moment, he felt the human chess piece on his chest vibrate, and a force was drawn from the room. The human chess piece was the sum of all human powers. After the death of a human, the soul would be broken down into energy particles and returned to it. When a new life was born, the power within the human chess piece would surge again. That process was usually very subtle because countless humans died every day, and countless new humans would be born. Watson had never felt the overly intense vibration, but at that moment, he could feel it. That proved that the human chess pieces had used up a large amount of energy. Watson, you know about that? When you went out, did you obtain clairvoyance or the ability to predict the future? Are you just saying that comfort me? Watson's words did not convince Edward. Suddenly, a loud cry erupted from the room. Immediately after that, the door was pushed open by two maids. They wiped the sweat from their heads and said, "Madam has given birth. It's a girl. It's really a girl." Edward was stunned on the spot. He quickly reacted and rushed into the room. Watson and his siblings rushed in with him. After the group of people entered, they immediately surrounded a large bed in the middle of the room. They encircled Catherine, who was covered in sweat and looked haggard. A baby girl wrapped in a white towel placed her finger in her mouth. She lay there quietly and did not cry or make any noise. Her blue eyes sized up the world curiously, and the few hairs on her head stuck to her forehead. "You're all here. We have a human baby girl. Look at her eyes. They're sky blue like the sea. Isn't she cute?" Catherine looked at the baby with a loving expression. "What should we name her? Any ideas?" She raised her head. When she saw Watson in the room, she was stunned. She looked at him lovingly. "Watson, you're home. The baby's eyes look very similar to yours. Why don't you choose a name for her? Ever since I had you, our lives have become better. I hope that this child can be as promising as you and bring more joy to the family." "Mother, are you sure you want Watson to choose a name?" The older siblings knew Watson's lack of skills in coming up with names. The beautiful frost phoenix was called Emperor Cluck, and the magnificent death omen star dragon was called Charcoal. Even the world transformation mirror that Watson had collected in the City of Steel had ridiculed Watson's naming ability. As a result, many people on Mount Creation knew about that matter. However, Watson did not know that. He ignored his siblings' doubts. He stroked his chin and began to ponder. "My sister's eyes are beautiful, and her facial features are exquisite, but none of those can compare to the dull hair on her forehead. She looks adorable. I've decided that my sister's name will be Fluffy." "Fluffy? Watson, are you serious?" The rest of them widened their eyes. "Of course. My sister looks as soft and cute as Fluffy. How can a girl be named Fluffy?" Watson's naming skill is a disaster for women. Scarlet rolled her eyes. Nindy and Margaret nodded in agreement. The baby, who had been biting his fingers and appeared very quiet, suddenly loosened his fingers after hearing that name. She kicked her calves and cried loudly. "Watson, look at you. The name is too ugly, even my daughter can't bear to hear it anymore," Edward retorted. Watson's expression became awkward. "Then what name would you give her?" "I think that child's eyes are very bright. There seems to be light in them. Why don't we call her Jean?" Jean was a knight from a previous Holy Dragon Kingdom era. She was known as the Knight of Light. Therefore, the name also had a bright and beautiful meaning. Everyone praised the name unanimously. Even the baby stopped crying. Her big blue eyes blinked as if she liked that name very much. The only one who was unhappy was probably Watson. He walked to the corner of the wall and leaned against it, muttering, "What's wrong with Fluffy? It's a cute name." Chapter 595, Margaret's Request. Jean. "From now on, you will be called Jean. Jean, come and call me father." After picking the name, Edward reached out to touch Jean's face. "I can't believe that Catherine and I are at the diamond tier. Our baby does not contain the angels or the dragon's bloodlines. Generally speaking, the more powerful the person is, the more difficult it is for them to give birth to a child. Even though Jean doesn't have the strong bloodline of other races and is just an ordinary human baby, it's better that way. I don't think I can accept it if she's not human." "Wait a minute, father." Seeing that Edward's finger was about to touch Jean's face, Watson, who was leaning against the wall, seemed to feel something. His expression changed, and he turned around to stop Edward. Unfortunately, it was too late. Bang! Edward's hand stopped an inch away from Jean's face. The baby's blue eyes turned golden. Mysterious and ancient runes on Jean's body formed a golden protective barrier, and a faint godly chant was heard. Then, the protective barrier spread outward and formed a light storm. Edward's hair almost fell off his scalp, and the muscles on his face twisted in waves. Edward's body spun and flew backward in less than a second, landing heavily on the wall and leaving a human-shaped hole in it. After a long while, Edward flew in the direction of the hole, clutching his waist. He looked in disbelief at Jean, who was emitting golden light on the bed. What's going on? How can Jean have such powerful strength? He was sent flying after saying that Jean was an ordinary human baby. He had the strength of a diamond tier elite, and Jean's power was much more powerful than any dragon or angel. Vincent and the others, who had also reached out to touch Jean, withdrew their arms. I forgot to tell you. I knew she would be a human girl because she took a large amount of power from the human chess piece in my body when she was born, Watson said helplessly. That meant Jean's body contained a tremendous amount of energy. That energy was constantly growing, and in a short period, it had expanded countless times, reaching the level of the starlight tier. It would be as dazzling as the sun if all that energy were released. When Edward was sent flying backward, that power did not explode completely. Otherwise, Edward would not have been sent flying backward but turned into ashes instead. Watson only knew one thing that could achieve such a level: the law of molecular acceleration contained in the human chess piece. There was no doubt that Jean's body had the power of molecular acceleration right after she was born. It's comparable to a magic source. That's not power equivalent to the starlight tier. Perhaps Jean has the power of a god. Maybe Mother gave birth to a god. Vincent muttered in disbelief. The baby is probably even more terrifying than a god. Her body contains the law of molecular acceleration. Initially, only the king of a race could control it. In other words, Jean has the aptitude to become the king of humans and even surpasses the gods. The moment she was born, her body contained molecular acceleration. That was equivalent to the world's future king of humans. No wonder a large amount of power was taken from the human chess piece just now. Watson's expression was a little complicated. Humankind could only have one king, but there were two qualified people to take the throne. He could not compete with his sister. For the sake of his sister's development, he might have to search for other race chess pieces and become the king of other races. While he was thinking, a smile appeared on Edward's face, and he said, I didn't expect the child to be so powerful. She is as powerful as a god, even as a newborn. Isn't that much more powerful than when Watson was born? Even so, Watson had the means to create Mount Creation and change the structure of the Holy Dragon Kingdom. But that child is even more powerful than Watson. Will she accomplish even greater feats in the future? My dear Jean, from now on, you will replace Watson as the new pride of our family. All right, all of you can leave now. I want to be alone with Jean. Don't just stand there. Especially you, Watson. You still have a lot of things to do, right? Before Jean comes of age, you have to pave the way for her and be a good brother. Edward did not know anything about the king of humankind or molecular acceleration. However, he understood what Watson meant. Jean might break through the starlight tier in the future. Even if there were diamond tier elites then, they were still very far from the starlight tier. Jean had gotten a head start, so they must praise her talents. The main reason must have been that his genes were better. Edward could not help but grin. Creak. Watson clenched his fists. His father did not disappoint. Every time he spoke, people would have the urge to beat him up. What did he mean that Jean would replace Watson as the family's pride? What did he mean that he would have to pave the way for Jean when her strength had yet to surpass his? Would his father abandon him? Father, how can you say such a thing? Watson and I haven't seen each other for a long time. He just came back, and you're chasing him away without even having a meal with him. How can you do that? Zeke and Zenoa spoke at the same time. Their words were full of complaints, which made Watson feel gratified. It was as he had expected of his third and fourth brothers, who had been very close to him when he was young. They would always stand up for him. Unfortunately, the next sentence from the two of them dispelled the gratitude in his heart. At least wait for Watson to finish eating with us before chasing him away. What? Watson was speechless. He did not know what to say. Did they mean he could not stay there anymore? Must he leave? At that moment, someone poked him on the shoulder with the tip of a pen. It was Margaret. Watson, come with me for a moment. She grabbed the corner of Watson's clothes and dragged him out of the room without any explanation. They walked down the stairs to her room on the second floor. Don't mind what just happened. Didn't you take over the kingdom? Father said that because he was worried you had not finished dealing with your matters. He doesn't want us to delay you. You are irreplaceable in his heart. When you weren't around, Father would fly to the top of the world tree every day to look into the distance. If it weren't for the guards, he would have gone to the royal city to see you. You don't have to worry about what Father said because, in our family, you are the only pride we have. Margaret's tone was calm, but her words made Watson rub his nose in embarrassment. He had sensed the concern in the eyes of his family members, who seemed to have wanted to chase him away. He could understand their thoughts, just like how he did not want his family to know about the threat of the elven army. Did you ask me here just to inform me that? A faint warmth rose in his heart. Watson looked at Margaret. It had been a long time since he last saw his sister, and she was no longer the same as before. Her skin was no longer transparent, though she was still very fair. It was apparent she had not only stayed in the room, but her cheeks still had some baby fat to them. Of course not. Margaret rolled her eyes at Watson and said, "Why would I get you here just to comfort you? I had something to do. You know that I have been writing heroic adventure novels. The novels are very popular on Mount Creation. However, because you have been away from Mount Creation for a period, I haven't been able to write anything recently. Coincidentally, you have returned home. Quickly. Tell me what happened to you during this period so that I can continue my novel." Chapter 596, Ridiculous Novel Content. On the second floor of Black Moon Castle, in Margaret's room. Where should I start? Before I went to the royal city, Master Antonio brought me to the City of Steel and the floating City of Stanley. Many things happened in those two cities. In the City of Steel, I created a tower that leads to the sky. Its name is the Tower of Babel. Margaret was holding a quill and writing on a piece of brown paper. Watson sat on the sofa and crossed his hands as he explained to Margaret. Unfortunately, he was interrupted by Margaret before he could finish his words. I know about the Tower of Babel that you built in the City of Steel. After all, many Black Moon Knights have gone there to serve as gatekeepers. After returning, their strength has increased a lot. I heard that you even have a mighty black dragon there. I have recorded those in Watson, the hero's biography, in the 10th volume, Climbing the Tower. Margaret casually pulled out a beautifully shaped book from a bookshelf at her side as she spoke. The carefully wrapped book had a spiral-shaped tower on its surface. It depicted a youth holding a long sword raising his head to look at the top of the tower. It looked very imposing. The 10th volume? I didn't expect your novel has been published so many times now. Watson praised her as he looked at the well-packaged novel. He said, "Since you already know what happened to me in the City of Steel, then I'll tell you the story about the floating city. While I was there, you saved the Sea Folks Princess and became their savior. You helped the Sea Folks build the underwater Dragon Palace network, which runs through the whole kingdom. I recorded those in the 11th volume, The Man Who Became the King of the Sea." Margaret took out another book. It had the same exquisite scene, the same thickness, and the same young man holding a long sword. However, the background had changed from the tower to the bottomless sea. It seems like you have already written about what happened to me on the road. Then let me tell you about what happened in the capital. I have also written that part in the 12th volume, the Royal Academy's competition, where you showed your talent. You defeated one genius after another and became acknowledged as the #1 genius in the Holy Dragon Kingdom, conferred by the king. You were even bestowed with a marriage alliance with Princess Kiana. In the volumes 13th through 15th, I've written the story of your rebellion against the king. Now, I'm ready to write the 16th volume. I've just thought of a name for that volume. It will be called Conquering the Elves. The content is mainly about the process of you subduing the elves and other kingdoms that exist on the continent. Wait a minute. While Margaret was speaking with assurance, Watson could not help but reach out to interrupt her. He had a puzzled look on his face. Margaret, how do you know so much about me? There were many things in Margaret's book that he did not tell his family. For example, the details of his fight with King Landar III involved the gods. If he told his family, they would be worried. He did not know how Margaret managed to write that part of the book. Watson, have you forgotten that before you left, you gave me a pen of truth? Its power is to turn what you write into reality. Furthermore, I am a professional writer. Even if I don't know much about your deeds, I can add some dramatic content based on the facts and adapt it. That's right, my honorable master. The completion of those works is inextricably linked to my assistance. As Margaret spoke, the quill in her hand jumped up from the parchment, bent slightly in the air, and spoke in a human voice. It has been 2 years and 1 month since you left Mount Creation. I've missed you so much. Fortunately, you're back now. When I miss you, I write down my emotions about missing you with my pen. Of course, during that process, I made some small artistic modifications. Artistic modifications? Hearing those words and seeing the cheerful pen of truth, Watson had a strange expression on his face. A bad feeling arose in his heart. Margaret, lend me those books in your hands. Taking the books that Margaret had just displayed, Watson flipped through them. The more he read, the uglier his expression became. Watson held a long sword in his hand and shouted at Christina, a young girl from the Sword Saint family. What kind of ability is it to pass the maze? Even if I pass through it, I will only be ranked behind the current Sword Saint. People will only remember the first place and not the second place. I want to turn the dungeon into a tower. That way, I'll be the first to pass through the dungeon. Christina threw herself into Watson's arms and said, "You're so bold. I like that so much." Those were the contents of the 10th volume of Margaret's novel, The City of Steel. Seeing that paragraph, Watson asked, "When have I ever said such a thing? Plus, Miss Christina has never done such a thing to me. You can't just slander someone. That's very irresponsible of you. A beautiful woman is worshipping a hero. That is a typical hero novel. I didn't write about what happened between you and Christina. I only said that she adores you. Isn't that very normal? All the women who interacted with you have some form of admiration for you. You are the strongest genius in the kingdom and the future king. Furthermore, the people on Mount Creation love such scenes." Margaret picked up her teacup and took a sip. Watson was rendered speechless and continued to read. Standing in front of the sea with a long sword in his hand, he shouted at the sad-looking sea folks. "You sea folks have always lived a life of enslavement and bullied by humans. The sea god you believe in has not protected you or made your situation better. I'm different. I can give you protection that the gods can't. So believe in me. I want to be your new god." Alice could not bear the love in her heart. She threw herself into Watson's arms and said, "You're so brave. I like you so much." "What?" Watson closed the book in his hand. "Margaret, that. I know what you're trying to say. I didn't write anything wrong. It's no secret that Princess Alice is interested in you. The people on Mount Creation heard the rumors when they were transporting supplies for the sea folks. That's not what I'm trying to say. Why do those two paragraphs seem so similar? That's what the readers like. You don't understand. Repetition is the charm. Watson put the book down. He did not intend to continue reading. In any case, those books would only write about him shouting at someone and then a certain girl throwing herself into his arms. That could not go on. If the residents on Mount Creation treated those things written by Margaret as fact, he would feel so ashamed that he would die. He had to correct his sister's bad writing habits. I can tell you in detail about the story of your 16th volume, Conquering the Elves, so stop adding fuel to the fire. With a cough, Watson looked at Margaret, sitting opposite him. She adjusted her posture and said, "Go ahead, I'm listening." Just as he was about to speak, the door to the room suddenly opened with a bang. "Watson, I've been looking for you for a long time." "So you're here?" "I've been on Mount Creation for a long time, and I've obtained a lot of things here. We can't just reap the benefits, we should get the elven soldiers in the fortress city and hold a meeting to attack the Holy Dragon Kingdom. You can make the arrangements now. By the way, I think it's time for you to hand over Mount Creation to me." It was the Elven King. At that moment, the Elven King looked completely different from before. Each of his hands held a magical staff that shone with diamond light, and on his shoulders was a basket filled with phoenix eggs. On top of his head was a large basin filled with the sun and moon fruits. It looked very comical. It had been a few hours since they entered Mount Creation. The Elven King had finally finished touring the scenic spots in Mount Creation with Alan and List. He remembered that his purpose for coming to Mount Creation was not for leisure. Instead, he was there to occupy that place and continue to attack the kingdom with that place as his base. Chapter 597, Give you Mount Creation? Give you Mount Creation? Are you dreaming? After the Elven King finished speaking, Alan and List, who were with the Elven King, looked at each other in dismay and exclaimed at the same time. They had seen Watson bestow benefits on the dragons and the sea folks. Every time they accepted the benefits, those races were very respectful. They had never seen anyone take the initiative to ask Watson for benefits. Even the powerful dragons were like that, let alone the elves, who were much weaker. Were they that confident about their abilities? Why are you all so surprised? Aren't you giving me Mount Creation? Then why did you bring me here for a visit? The Elven King was also stunned. Watson had agreed to join the Elven Kingdom, so he had brought him to visit the Dragon Palace and Mount Creation. In his opinion, it was to offer those things to him. That was just to let him familiarize himself with the environment in advance. That was also why he had accepted the gift in front of Alan and List, because he thought everything on Mount Creation belonged to him. It seemed like things were not quite what he had imagined. "Your Majesty, since we have come to this point, let me lay my cards on the table. I did not bring you to Mount Creation to offer you this place, but to hope you would give up attacking the Holy Dragon Kingdom after seeing the power here." "What did you say? Are you saying that you were lying to me when you said you wanted to join the Elven Kingdom?" Watson did not respond. He looked non-committal, which made the Elven King clench his teeth and throw the diamond tier magical staff in his hand to the ground. He even threw the phoenix eggs in the basket on his shoulder and the fruit bowl on his head to the ground. One of the hundreds of elven soldiers behind him said heartbreakingly, "Your Majesty, those things are very precious. Don't throw them around recklessly. If you break them, it will be a great loss." "Shut up. There are many of those things on Mount Creation. As long as we occupy this place, what's wrong with breaking a few? Furthermore, the worst of those items is the sun fruit. Do you think that the fruit, which has grown for 1,000 years, is that fragile?" After scolding his subordinates, the Elven King turned around and sneered at Delta. "What's going on? Didn't you capture Watson from the fortress city? Didn't you use poison or any methods to control him? How dare he talk to me like that now?" "Your Majesty, I'm very sorry. I never captured Watson. Actually, he caught me. What did you say? Delta's bitter smile and words caused the expressions of all the elves to change. They thought that the elven assassin's plan had succeeded when they saw Watson. They did not expect the truth to be the opposite. Why didn't Delta tell them? The expression on Delta's face became even more bitter. She wanted to tell them, but the Elven King interrupted her every single time. Furthermore, the Elven King had such confidence along the way, it made her feel that he would not believe her even if she told him. Delta, your actions are equivalent to betraying us. Take her down. The Elven King waved his hand, and an elf immediately came forward to grab Delta, who did not resist. I can't deal with you now. I will think of how to punish you after I finish dealing with Watson. The Elven King gritted his teeth when he looked at the youth opposite him. He felt angry that the young man had played him. He must have enjoyed the show until then. Watson, I really want to recruit you into the elf race. Seeing that you don't know how to appreciate my favors, don't blame me for not being polite. Initially, Watson must have wanted to hand over Mount Creation to him, so he did not want to resort to violence. However, there was no need for him to restrain himself at that moment. How dare you? You are not allowed to disrespect young Master Watson. Before the Elven King could take action, 2 long swords appeared on his neck. The diamond-tier weapons were imbued with the same level of combat aura. If the intense sword aura had not been restrained, the Elven King's head would have been cut off. It turned out that Watson had not subdued the elves. The elves were there as enemies. They thought that the Elven King was a guest, but their enthusiasm had been in vain. If they had known earlier, they would not have given them those those valuable resources. Those who obey me live, and those who disobey me will die. Today, you will either kneel and beg for mercy or be killed by me. It's your choice, the Elven King said confidently. His army had been isolated in the direction of the distant fortress city. There were only him and a small number of elves there at that moment. Such combat strength was obviously not enough to face the millions of angels on Mount Creation, not to mention the Black Moon Knights. Even the farmers carrying hoes might not be a match for them. However, he was very confident. He felt like he had a way to defeat Watson and conquer Mount Creation. The source of his confidence came from the elven race chess pieces on his body. Supernatural evolution power. The Elven King opened his mouth. As he spoke, the 2 long swords on his neck were covered by the elven race chess pieces' emerald light. They immediately squirmed and changed shape, extending from the twisted shape of the metal long swords. The 2 metal serpents that had changed shape stuck out their tongues and attacked Alan and List. The transformed metal serpents had dragon horns on their heads and wings on their backs. Every scale on their bodies was comparable to a diamond weapon. A dark red light that contained destructive waves appeared in their wide-open fangs and mouths. Absolute combustion. The weapons in Alan and List's hands were originally diamond tier. The 2 weapons had turned into metal pythons after the supernatural evolution power. Their combat power had doubled. The pythons opened their mouths at that moment, and an invisible force of law appeared. The floor and the surrounding walls immediately began to burn. There are quite a number of elites on Mount Creation. If I were to face them head-on, I might not be a match for them. However, right now, there are only you and 2 guards here. I have 100 guards. We have the advantage. I'll give you one more chance. If you obey me, I can let bygones be bygones. Otherwise. Ignoring the Elven King, Watson turned to Margaret and said, Margaret, if you want to write down what happened in the novel later, I hope you can write it down truthfully. The Elven King's face darkened. It seemed like Watson did not think of him as anything. He admitted that Watson was powerful, but his supernatural evolution power was not something to be trifled with. There were so many treasures on Mount Creation that were excellent for his supernatural evolution power. Those diamond tier items were very likely to help him break through to diamond tier and reach the starlight tier after one evolution. Would Watson do it for him? Chapter 598, Continuous Fusion. With confidence, the Elven King stretched his hand outward, and the two giant metal snakes that he had evolved immediately pounced in Watson's direction. At the same time, he unleashed the supernatural evolution power on the phoenix eggs, the sun fruits, and the world tree staff that were scattered around his feet. Those were things that he had thrown onto the ground in a fit of anger, but they were of great use then. Under the effect of the supernatural evolution power, the phoenix eggs shattered, and baby phoenixes burned with blazing flames hatched. However, those phoenixes were different from ordinary phoenixes. They had 2 or more heads, and they looked extremely deformed. The sun fruits and moon fruits had also evolved. The size of the sun fruit had been magnified countless times, and endless light and heat were emitted from within. It looked like a bomb that was about to explode, and while the moon fruits had also expanded, a layer of frost had condensed on the ground. The world tree staff had changed the most. It had transformed from a weapon that mimicked the world tree into a real world tree. Thick branches crisscrossed around the Elven King, protecting him and the elves. Alan and List spread their angel wings on their backs, and their bodies burned with different colors of combat aura. They tried to shatter the world tree branches, but their attacks landed on the world tree and were quickly repelled. Instead, the world tree branches that continued to extend penetrated through Margaret's room, taking root deeper into the Black Moon Castle. Meanwhile, the sun fruit bombs and the hatched phoenixes also began to move. Margaret's room was initially very spacious, but it seemed crowded in front of those evolved creatures as if the room would explode in the next moment. However, Margaret sat quietly on the chair, holding a pen and paper as she calmly looked at everything in front of her. I like a lot of the decorations in my room, but now they have been destroyed. You have to take responsibility and compensate me properly. With Watson by her side, Margaret was not flustered. The method unleashed seemed very powerful, but Watson had even more power. In terms of combat, Watson had never let her family down. Just as Margaret was thinking about that, Watson moved. Fusion system, activate. Whoosh! The phoenixes turned into rays of light and intertwined in the air, turning into a phoenix with 9 heads. Its body emitted an aura comparable to the starlight tear. Congratulations, Master, on successfully fusing a large number of phoenixes. You have obtained a starlight tear divine beast, the 9-headed immortal bird. The 9-headed immortal bird had 9 heads of different colors. Each head corresponded to a different magic element, except the yin element. The 9 heads had 6 basic elements, plus chaos, life, and death. After the fusion, the 9-headed immortal bird let out a cry into the sky. Then, it flapped its wings and shrank its body, turning into a chicken with flames burning on its head and tail. It obediently stood on Watson's shoulder. Even the giant sun fruit bombs and moon fruit bombs created by the Elven King had also fused. The blazing power and the cold energy fused, turning into fist-sized gold and silver gems that floated in the air. Congratulations, Master, for successfully fusing the giant sun fruits and the moon fruits. You have obtained a Peak Diamond Tier Radiant Sun and Moon Divine Fruit. Peak Diamond Tier Item, Radiant Sun and Moon Divine Fruit. Effects: after consuming it, you will obtain the effects of both the sun and moon fruits. The effect will also increase from gold to platinum tier. Congratulations, Master, for fusing the world tree sapling. The last thing Watson fused was the world tree root that the Elven King had evolved. The world tree roots fused and turned into an illusory sapling. The sapling looked illusory, but it was emitting a dazzling light, and there was no doubt that it was the only third world tree sapling in the world. If it were cultivated, as long as there was sufficient energy supply, it would mature into a world tree after some time. The Elven King's attack was aggressive, but Watson only waved his hand to resolve it. That scene stunned the Elven King and all the other elves. How can this be? My supernatural evolution power is no longer effective, the Elven King muttered to himself. Not only was his power of evolution ineffective, but Watson had snatched the things that he evolved. Delta was held by her compatriots, and her expression seemed conflicted. It's as I expected. The elven race chess piece's power is not enough to go against Watson's power. The elven race chess pieces are very powerful, but they're not impossible to crack. Watson waved his hand and drew the radiant sun and moon divine fruit that had just been fused into his hand. He put it into his mouth and took a bite. It made a creaking sound as if he was biting an apple. Watson thought a precious treasure at the peak of the diamond tier was no different from an ordinary item. Many elves looked distressed after seeing that scene. The Elven King is not the only one who has an elven race chess piece. As he finished speaking, Watson's chest emitted a bright light. A race chess piece made of different human faces that flickered with starlight flew out from his chest. The moment it appeared, it suppressed the power of the elven race chess piece on the Elven King's body. The race chess pieces were formed from 3 parts of the universe's origin, and each chess piece contained the same amount of energy source. Of course, different laws contained a mutual restraining relationship. For example, the molecular acceleration ability of the human race chess pieces was more effective than the supernatural evolution because the latter required a process, and the former could destroy evolved life forms before the evolution was complete. The race chess piece on Watson was also still intact. After seeing the race chess piece on Watson, the Elven King's expression changed completely. There was fear mixed with a hint of greed. Didn't they say that the human race chess piece was lost in the ancient war? I didn't think that it would appear here and still be intact. It is no wonder Watson has such strong combat strength at such a young age. It turns out that he has a race chess piece, the Elven King thought, blaming Watson's strength on the race chess piece. The elven race chess pieces had been damaged during the war in ancient times, and only a small portion of them remained. On the other hand, Watson had a complete race chess piece. If he could snatch that chess piece, he would not need to do anything else to control all the humans. Watson, you were lucky just now. I haven't used my full strength yet. Let's see how you can stop this move. Supernatural evolution power. The Elven King roared as the incomplete elven race chess pieces enveloped him. The light that the human race chess piece had suppressed shone with an emerald green light once again. The intensity of the light was even stronger than before. The light spread out like a wave, enveloping the entire Black Moon Castle. Tables, chairs, and even the walls and floors in Margaret's room began to squirm and crack, revealing an enormous mouth filled with metal fangs. The light also transformed the elves around the Elven King. The Platinum Tier elves had risen to the peak of their power, and those peak Platinum Tier elites had risen to Diamond Tier. The excessive mutation caused cracks to appear on their bodies, and they looked like they were about to collapse. In just a few seconds, the elves, including the Elven King, had all evolved to a higher tier. Chapter 599, Defeated by a Baby. At that moment, a green crown made from the tree roots appeared above the Elven King's head. On his back, arms made of trees materialized. There seemed to be hundreds of them. After those arms appeared, they stabbed into the ground. Endless vines extended into the ground and covered everything in sight. It was as if the entire Black Moon Castle was about to be transformed by the Elven King into a powerful monster. Initially, the Elven King did not intend to use supernatural evolution power to evolve. Unfortunately, Watson was too powerful, so he had no choice. Watson, the castle we're in now has been changed by the power of evolution. Soon, it will spread to the entire Mount Creation. When that happens, the land will evolve into a terrifying monster. And you're now in the belly of that monster. Where will you run? As the vines spread, blocking the walls in all directions, the space in the room became smaller. The Elven King's smug laughter echoed in the room. Why should I run? As the vines around him closed in and cracked open, revealing a large mouth wrapped in mucus, as if it was going to tear itself apart in the next moment, Watson remained calm. To him, that battle was destined to end from the beginning. If the supernatural evolution power of the elven race chess piece was strong, and the Elven King's full power was comparable to his fusion system, he did not need to face it head-on. If he could not deal with the Elven King's evolved creature, then he could just deal with the Elven King himself. At that moment, the Elven King's strength had evolved from peak Platinum tier to Diamond tier after being enveloped by the light of supernatural evolution power. Watson could still fuse him. Watson extended his right hand toward the Elven King. Just as he was about to activate the fusion system, a huge crack suddenly appeared on the ceiling above everyone's heads. While carrying the swaddled Jean in his arms, Edward flew downward with a displeased expression. "What are you guys doing? Are you guys going to demolish the house? Watson, your mother has just given birth, and her body is weak. You guys are so noisy that Jean starts crying. The moment she cries, the power in her body goes out of control. I've already been sent flying several times. It hasn't been easy for me to calm her down and make her fall asleep again. And you look like the king of the elves. Why do you have so many arms on your back? You look different from the other elves. Also, why did you insert your arms into the wall to create so many vines? Did Watson invite you? Can you keep the noise down?" After Edward reprimanded Watson, he quickly turned around and aimed his annoyance at the Elven King. When the Elven King realized that Edward was talking to him, he stopped his wild laughter and fell silent. "Father, you have misunderstood. We are not fooling around. The Elven King is not here to visit the Black Moon Castle. We are fighting." Watson's weak words broke the silence. "Fighting?" Edward looked around and found that the Elven King had a ferocious expression. The hundreds of elves behind him were eyeing him like tigers watching their prey. Alan and List, who were guarding the door, were anxious. They raised their fists and made battle poses with the elves. With a cough, Edward turned around with a calm expression and flew toward the big hole in the ceiling with Jean. "If you had told earlier that you guys were fighting, I would not have come down here. You guys can continue. I remembered that Catherine wanted me for something just now. I'll head back. You want to leave? Stay here." The silence in the room broke. A ferocious smile appeared on the Elven King's face again. He stretched his hands outward, and dozens of thick and long vines from all directions immediately swung toward Edward's back. Watson snapped his fingers, and a blazing light of molecular acceleration appeared. 90% of the vines were shattered, but a few escaped and wrapped themselves around Edward's body. Watson was furious. Due to his father's sudden intrusion, he did not have the time to complete the fusion process with the Elven King. His attack had already been released, and the room was too narrow. If he used the molecular acceleration skill, he would hurt his family and friends. That was why the Elven King was victorious in his attack. The barbs on the vines tightened around Edward's body and were about to tear him apart. Suddenly, a loud song resounded throughout the room. Jean kicked her calves randomly in Edward's arms and let out a loud cry as a layer of bright golden light appeared on her body. The light condensed into long, thick, and scorching molecular acceleration beams that shot in all directions. The vines wrapped around Edward's body were vaporized and turned into ashes almost instantly when they came into contact with the light beams. After shattering the vines, the molecular acceleration beams did not stop for even a second. They penetrated the walls in all directions and burned the walls that had evolved into living creatures. The light beams also passed through the Elven King and the elves behind him. The elves were unable to resist the beam of light at all. Large holes appeared in their bodies, and they screamed as they fell to the ground. It was the same with the Elven King. The blazing golden light penetrated his chest, and a large hole appeared. He held the large hole in his chest, his face was filled with pain and disbelief. "I was defeated by a baby." He was not that surprised, even after being defeated by Watson. That must have been the family's newborn family member. She had cried out with a powerful burst of power from her body, and it had almost wiped out all the elves, and he also suffered some severe injuries. He might have died if he did not have the power from the spring of life. Even a baby could defeat him. How would he conquer the Black Moon Castle and the Holy Dragon Kingdom next? It had dealt a massive blow to his confidence. While he was in a daze, an elven race chess piece emitting an emerald green light fell from his chest. A slender female arm took the elven chess piece first before he could reach it. It's like I expected. Elven King, you are no match for Watson, indeed. I thought you could hold on for a little longer. I didn't expect you to lose so quickly. You even lost to a newborn child. Fortunately, I came just in time. The owner of the arm was a girl with red hair. Her hair danced freely like a snake, and her charming face had a confident smile. Who are you? Watson frowned. The girl felt familiar, but he had never seen her before. It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that Black Moon Castle and Mount Creation will soon be destroyed. The red-haired girl smiled and pointed the elven race chess piece in her hand. Supernatural evolution power. The Elven King, who had a large hole in his chest and was relying on the power of the spring of life to heal himself, suddenly let out a miserable cry. His body expanded, and vines crawled from his body, sweeping in all directions. The vines absorbed the elves who could not dodge in time. Soon, more than 100 elves were absorbed into the Elven King's body. Only Delta managed to escape in time. Chapter 600, The Winter Nations Attack. At that moment, Delta was sitting on the ground, staring blankly at everything in front of her as she muttered to herself, "What is that?" Many elves were grabbed by the vines that flew out of the Elven King's body and fused, turning them into giant monsters with a rotten tree appearance. Branch-shaped arms extended out from around the tree, looking like a rotten world tree. The monster's body was hundreds of meters long, and its thick and long body directly pierced through Black Moon Castle. The top of the tree had the Elven King's face. He had lost consciousness in a frenzy. The Elven King, who had always used the supernatural evolution power on others, did not expect that he would also evolve through that power. "I'll take the elven race chess piece. Goodbye, everyone." The red-haired girl took the elven race chess piece as she placed her left hand on her right shoulder and performed the Holy Dragon Kingdom's standard noble etiquette. She turned around and was about to leave. Then, the Elven King and the monsters that had merged with the elves shook their bodies, which were as thick as the world tree. Half of the Black Moon Castle's dome had collapsed, revealing the azure sky outside. The red-haired girl took advantage of the situation and flew into the sky. What happened? The Black Moon Knights rose into the sky. They looked at the collapse of Black Moon Castle and the red-haired girl standing on the giant monster that looked like the world tree. Since the creation of Mount Creation, everything there had never been destroyed, not to mention that Black Moon Castle was the strongest building on Mount Creation. That was the first time someone had invaded and damaged it so badly. "Stop!" Watson spread all the wings on his back. He flew with all his might and turned into a ray of light, stopping the red-haired girl who had wanted to leave. "No matter who you are, hand over the elven race chess piece and surrender." The way the girl spoke was very similar to King Landar III. However, King Landar III was a man who had been fused by the system. No matter how he thought about it, the girl in front of him should not be King Landar III. However, if she were not King Landar III, he could not think of anyone who would be so hostile to him and create such a large array to target him. Initially, when he saw the Elven King fighting in the castle, Watson felt a little regretful. He thought the Elven King had already seen the power of Mount Creation, so he doubted that he would make a move. It was a brainless act. It seemed like the Elven King did not want to make a move, but there seemed to be an invisible force behind the scenes controlling everything. No matter what the red-haired girl wanted to do, Watson could not let her leave after she destroyed the Black Moon Castle and put his family in danger. "I'm sorry, no one can stop me from leaving. If you have time to catch me, you should worry more about yourself. I did not come here just to take away the race chess piece." The red-haired girl chuckled and attacked the space beside her with her right hand. A large hole immediately appeared, and many elves fell from the hole. Those elves were covered in injuries. Then, the red-haired girl used the supernatural evolution power to envelop the elven king's body. Hundreds of thousands of elves flew out of the hole like dumplings. Some of them were part of the elven army that Watson had seen before, and some were elves that Watson had never seen before. He suspected that they were from the elven kingdom. The elves had scarlet hair wrapped around their bodies, and they were all screaming in panic. The ends of their hair were connected to the red-haired girl's hair. It was apparent that the red-haired girl controlled them. "Help! I don't want to die yet." Those elves were crying and screaming as they struggled violently. There was no lack of platinum and diamond tier elites. As they struggled violently, their hair was constantly swaying. That caused the red-haired girl's eyes to turn cold as she snorted coldly, "All of you, be quiet." As the sound of her voice faded, the elves stopped their movements. It was as if their emotions had been sucked away as they floated in midair in a daze. With just one sentence, she had dealt with hundreds of thousands of elves, including quite many platinum and even diamond tier elves. It was apparent that the red-haired girl's level had already surpassed the diamond tier. "You're a starlight tier elite." Watson's pupils constricted. He thought he would fuse the red-haired girl, but it seemed like it was not something he could do. The fusion system could not fuse any existence at a higher tier than him. He was only at peak diamond tier. "Looks like you've already discovered it." The red-haired girl glanced at Watson and retracted the red hair wrapped around the elves. The elven king had already evolved into a towering tree, hundreds of meters tall, after merging with 100 elves. He had absorbed hundreds of thousands of elves, so his body had expanded hundreds of times, and he had become a behemoth that was truly comparable to the world tree. There used to be a world tree that covered the sky on Mount Creation. After that, there were 2 world trees. However, the world tree on Mount Creation was filled with sun and moon gems, and the trunk of the world tree that the elven king had turned into was filled with the heads of the elves screaming in pain. Those elves are from the elven kingdom. After being eroded by the supernatural evolution power, they have evolved to the starlight tier. Even gods will feel some resistance when facing their collective body. If I want to conquer the remaining kingdom, I will have to pay a necessary price. Watson has no way to fuse with monsters that have reached the starlight tier. The red-haired girl, Frigga, muttered to herself after creating a monster fused from the elves. She did not expect the elves to be able to stop Watson. Instead, she hoped that Watson would wipe out all the elves so that their power would return to the elven race chess piece. That would make it even more powerful. However, she still had a backup plan to deal with Watson. Boom! Hundreds of thousands of elves had merged into a world tree on Mount Creation, causing many residents to put down what they were doing and look at it. While they were watching in surprise, a roar suddenly came from the north. A group of black dots had appeared out of nowhere on the endless ice and snow plains in the north. The black dots closed in quickly and soon revealed their actual appearance. They were the Winter Nation's army. The Winter Queen, Empress Gustav, stood there with a scepter in her hand on the leading chariot covered with snow and ice. Her long snow-white hair fluttered in the wind, and her sky-blue eyes reflected the appearance of Mount Creation. "The elves, our ally, have launched an attack on the Holy Dragon Kingdom, and we can't hold back. It's time for the Holy Dragon Kingdom to see how powerful we are. Winter Nation's army, charge! Glory to the Winter Nation! To Her Majesty the Queen!" The Winter Nation soldiers stretched their fists upward, pounding their chests and shouting loudly. Then, they urged the giant snow bear under them to move forward. The giant bear roared and brought them to Mount Creation in a torrent. At the same time, they could hear roars of giant dragons from the sky. Under the knight's control, the giant dragons shot their dragon breath toward Mount Creation. Wherever the dragon breath passed, the air burned to ashes. Even though they were as powerful as normal dragons, their eyes were empty, as if someone controlled them. "Everything is as you planned, King Landar III. No, I should call you Frigga now." The Winter Queen leaned on her scepter. Her gaze passed through the layers of armies and the majestic mount creation and landed on the red-haired girl at the top of the mountain.